Hello, everyone. This is Tania with Christ Unlocks, and I appreciate you for clicking on this video. So, I was reading across different books that I've read over the past year, just really thinking about how God has spoken through a lot of the books that I've read. And one book that He led me to today was the book by a YouTuber named Daphne Madyara. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. And she wrote a book she's written a few books, but the one that I bought last year around this time was The Art of Being Private, Building in Silence. And I think this book is very relevant, especially right now as we're transitioning, Lord willing, into the 2023 year. And essentially, she talks about a few different things in this book. It has 7 chapters. But generally speaking, if I had to put it in a nutshell, she talks about the beauty, the godly beauty in building in silence and being very discerning in not only what you say regarding your goals, but also who you say it to. I really appreciated this book, and I would strongly suggest that if you are a person who loves to read faith-based books, specifically by women authors, that this should be added to your list. She includes scriptures all throughout this book, but one of the ones that really stood out to me, a passage that stood out to me, was Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to gain and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. And I was reflecting over this passage, and I took a few notes on specific verses, and I think I was looking over this around December 14th of last year, so a little over a year ago. And I was doing what a lot of us do around this time of year, which is review what we've done over the past year and what we would like to do in the upcoming year. And I just gathered that obviously the Lord wants us to bring what we want to do to Him, even if it's not in His will. He wants us to be honest about what we want to do in our heart so He can speak to us about it. And then it's up to us to go in His will if He wants us to do something or He wants us to set something down. So I say all this to say, on the next day after I reviewed this passage, the Lord told me, you can't build a house from the roof down. And that was very profound. Obviously, whenever the Lord speaks to you, He's not going to just speak just to be speaking, And I realized in that year, and I would say even in the 2022 year, sometimes when we get passionate about something in our own mind or in our flesh, we tend to get a little bit ahead of God. And He was telling me, He had seen that I've done that in some things I had been trying to accomplish in the 2021 year. So that's when He gave me that word. And then He went on to say, focus on setting a solid foundation. A house without a solid foundation cannot stand. And I started to review a lot of the things I was doing creatively in that year and things in my career and all of that. And as I was reviewing this in my devotion today, which today is December 27th, 2022, at the point of me recording this, I was just blessed to understand that God is so patient. And even when we, as believers, in our heart, we want to be in the will of God. But if we're being real, if we take our eyes off Jesus and we start to engage in things of the world, we can get caught up. That's just because we're humans, you know. And I'm not here to judge anybody. You know, I've had my share of, you know, looking at some things of the world that I admire and, you know, getting distracted. But I'm here to tell you today that if you are a person who's really thinking about your 2023 year, Lord willing, and you want to pursue things and, you know, you really want to make the most out of this upcoming year, I strongly encourage you to take those things to God, but also be honest. Confess what you truly want. God already knows your heart anyway, but confess what you truly want, whether you believe it is in God's will or not, because He will speak to you about the things that you confess out of your mouth. He'll speak to you about the things that you don't, but I just believe that it's important for you to be honest. And when you're honest, He will go into depth about what He wants you to do with those things, whether it be, like I said, to continue to pursue those things or to set them down. And when it comes down to the word where He said, or the word that He gave me, the Rhema word that He gave me, you can't build a house from the roof down. A lot of times when we get ahead of God, we think because it might be a good thing, and we don't sit down enough to really hear the nuanced things that He wants us to put in the foundation of a goal or a task or something that we want to do in our life. And when we do that, we are building our house on things that don't have a really solid foundation. And sometimes we don't see the ramifications of that until further down the line. We think, okay, everything is, you know, going as planned. We're getting approval from man. We're seeing maybe some monetary fruit, quote unquote, from what we've done. But it isn't until further down the line that God allows things to happen in a way that we realize that we should have waited for Him to really give us what we needed to have in order to make this work long term. But I encourage you to really look over this particular passage. I just felt led to share that with you today. If you are believing, you're still listening, I just encourage you to not get caught up in what the world is doing right now. Don't get caught up in the world telling you that you need to do this, you need to do that. You need to talk to God about what you have going on. God is the only one who knows the nuanced details of your life, of what He wants you to do, of what you've been through this year. He's the only one who knows how your heart is maneuvering during this time. And He's the only one who can give you authentic and true direction on what you have going on. I pray that you have a good day or night whenever you're listening to this. And until the next one, God bless.